So you're against diluting voting power?
I'm against gerrymandering.
Okay, so do you support then illegal immigrants being allowed to vote in elections?
Illegal immigrants don't vote in federal elections.
Well, illegal immigrants are who Democrats want to vote in federal elections.
But that doesn't make it. It doesn't matter if they want. It doesn't matter what anybody wants.
If you are against diluting political power for anybody, you should not want illegal immigrants to vote in American elections because we can't dilute the political power of American citizens.
This isn't a discussion about that.
Please like, subscribe, and share. In today's video, Brian Tyler Cohen calls out Caroline Sunshine during a heated debate on CNN as tensions rise over gerrymandering, voting rights, and political double standards. Caroline Sunshine attempts to defend Republican redistricting, but Brian Tyler Cohen quickly pushes back, turning the live discussion into a chaotic showdown. Let's get into it and watch how Brian Tyler Cohen shuts her down on CNN.
A Democrat in New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Illinois, Oregon, Washington, Colorado. This is the time to start fighting back and recognize the urgency of this moment right here. Because Republicans don't believe that Democrats have a right to exist as a party. And so if we don't start fighting back and if we don't stop unilaterally disarming, we're basically going to good government ourselves into obscurity.
Caroline, what do you think of this? Is it Jim Crow 2.0?
Well, so you're opposed to this because you think that this dilutes people's political power unfairly? Is that why you're opposed to this?
I think that it dilutes the ability of people in certain jurisdictions to be able to vote for their representatives. Nashville has been cracked into multiple districts. Memphis has been cracked in multiple districts. And so there's no way that those people who live in those jurisdictions can vote for their representatives because the Republicans have purposefully gerrymandered those states to dilute their voting power.
So you're against diluting voting power?
I'm against gerrymandering.
Okay, so do you support then illegal immigrants being allowed to vote in elections?
Illegal immigrants don't vote in federal elections.
Well, illegal immigrants are who Democrats want to vote in federal elections.
That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter if they want. It doesn't matter what anybody wants.
If you are against diluting political power for anybody, you should not want illegal immigrants to vote in American elections because we can't dilute the political power of American citizens.
But this isn't a discussion about that. And illegal immigrants are not allowed to vote in federal elections. What about this move of what the Supreme Court did and what Republicans are doing right now when it comes to redistricting? A lot of this started with President Trump telling Texas to get him more congressional districts.
Well, I think checks and balances played out here. I mean, the Virginia Supreme Court said this can't happen in 2026, but it could happen in 2028. So I'm not sure what the big deal is here. This went through the democratic process, and the Supreme Court, the judge struck it down saying the language in the referendum was flagrantly misleading. And he's not saying it can't happen. He's just saying it can't happen in 2026 because it's unconstitutional. And he's correct because that is a flagrant power play by Democrats to try to reshape the midterms in 2026.
So if you think that's a power play, was it a power play when Donald Trump demanded the same thing in Texas, said that he was entitled to 5 seats in Texas? Was that a power play?
Texas isn't Virginia. The states are sovereign according to the Constitution. The 10th Amendment says federalism. Each state has the right to conduct it differently.
I'm asking you if it was a power play.
How it played out in Texas because Texas isn't Virginia.
I understand that Texas is not Virginia, but I want to know if you think if it was a power play.
Where does this go? Because you want to talk about power plays. I would love to know. Hassan Piker on your side of the aisle said today that as a result of this ruling, if a peaceful revolution is not possible, then violent revolution is inevitable. So do you agree with Hassan Piker?
I'm not Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker can.
But do you agree with that?
Hassan Piker can speak for himself.
What does he mean by that?
I don't know. You can ask him. I'm not Hassan Piker. I'm Brian.
Do you agree with that? Do you condemn that?
Call Hassan Piker and ask.
Where do you want to see this go?
What I'm here I don't care what Hassan Piker says. I'm not Hassan Piker.
Please like, subscribe, and share. A growing number of Americans are becoming frustrated with how partisan redistricting has reshaped the political landscape over the years. Many studies suggest that heavily gerrymandered districts reduce competition, discourage voter turnout, and allow politicians to pick their voters instead of voters choosing their leaders. That's why redistricting debates have become so intense across the country, with more people questioning whether the system is designed for fairness or political gain. One major issue in these discussions is how often the focus shifts away from the real concern. Instead of addressing voter dilution and manipulated district lines, conversations are frequently redirected toward culture war topics that spark outrage while avoiding the core problem. While that may excite partisan audiences, it does little to restore public trust in the electoral system. There is also a growing concern about the long-term health of democracy. When voters feel their voices matter less because districts are drawn to favor one party, confidence in institutions begins to fade. Experts from across the political spectrum have warned that extreme gerrymandering fuels polarization by rewarding candidates who appeal only to their base rather than persuading moderate voters. At the heart of this debate is a much bigger question: whether Americans still believe elections are fair, competitive, and accountable. Once trust in that process starts to disappear, political division only becomes deeper and more difficult to repair.
Yeah,
are you or no? Just to be clear, because like, where does this go now that the Supreme Court in Virginia has ruled
Here's
this
where it
is not
goes.
constitutional?
It goes to me calling on every Democratic elected official, either in the legislature or the governor's office, in Democratic states across the country, and demanding that they redraw maps to fight fire with fire and actually counteract what Republicans have done in a raft of different states across the country and what they continue to do in southern states across the country in response to the Voting Rights Act being gutted.
Do you think that there should be a national ban on gerrymandering to try to stop this whole thing around the country?
I'm not opposed to it, but I also believe that the Constitution says, the 10th Amendment, what is not outlined here is left to the states. And I think states have a right to decide their own process. And that's what I'm arguing with you, is the process played out here in Virginia. It was put on the ballot on a referendum directly with the voters. It barely passed. The language was extremely misleading. There was an appeal. It then went to the state Supreme Court. What's the problem here? Checks and balances played out.
And you support a national ban.
100%. And in fact, when the Democrats put that forward, a national ban on gerrymandering in 2021, the Freedom to Vote Act, every single Democrat voted for it. Every single Republican voted against it.
Do you think the United States Supreme Court, which has supported Texas's right to do this and has supported California's right to do this, will support Virginia's right to do redistricting? You think they might overturn this?
No. I think that this Supreme Court has proven itself to be an arm of the Republican Party, if nothing else. And we have seen numerous instances where, whether it's this U.S. Supreme Court, where you had a bunch of justices beat their chest about the importance of precedent and the Voting Rights Act, which is, that precedent has been reaffirmed over and over and over again for the past 60 years, just like Roe was precedent that was reaffirmed over and over again. The Supreme Court stands for its own adherence to the Republican Party.
You think the Supreme Court might step in?
I don't think they're going to hear this. I don't see why they would. Again, the people of Virginia spoke. And what's interesting is when this referendum was put on the ballot, let's be very clear, it disenfranchised the rights and the voices, if we're talking about who got disenfranchised with a referendum, of rural Virginians. This referendum transferred power from majority of the state, which is rural Virginians, and consolidated it among the swamp, which is people who work in D.C. and live in Virginia. But I didn't hear you speaking up then.
And I, by the way, I would concede that when you have a gerrymandered map, certain people are disenfranchised, which is why this whole thing was sparked off after Republicans first went after Texas. I didn't agree with it when it happened in Texas, but what I don't want to see is unilateral disarmament. I think gerrymandering is a scourge all around. But if you really care about disenfranchisement, then you'll care about it when it happens right off the bat. You'll care about it when it happens in Texas. You'll care about it when all of a sudden Memphis is cracked into multiple districts, Nashville is cracked into multiple districts, and those people have no voting power because that's 100% Republican.
And that
now.
is true in California now, that Republicans are being disenfranchised by Prop 50.
But the difference
and the
is
districts are not. It's not fair to
Correct.
Republican voters. And the idea of like a 52-0 map here is not fair. Just like it's not fair what we're seeing in Tennessee and other places where there's going to be no Democratic representation. That's bad for democracy.
Correct. It's terrible for democracy.
Right.
The difference is there's only one party that actually supports a nationwide ban on gerrymandering, and that's the Democrats.
Violent revolution, to be clear, is also bad for democracy.
And
I
neither
agree.
Brian
Violent
nor
revolution.
myself are endorsing violent revolution, just to be clear. Always against political violence. I've said that repeatedly. Quickly.
Please like, subscribe, and share. The biggest issue with gerrymandering is that it allows politicians to protect themselves from voters instead of voters holding politicians accountable. Over the years, both parties have used aggressive redistricting tactics, but experts and voting rights groups have consistently warned that extreme district maps weaken competition and make elections less representative. When districts heavily favor one side, candidates no longer have to appeal to moderate or independent voters, which only increases political division and gridlock. What frustrates many Americans most is the double standard. Politicians often criticize gerrymandering when the other party benefits from it, but stay silent when their own side gains power the same way. That hypocrisy has contributed to declining trust in government and the electoral system. as more voters feel elections are being manipulated long before ballots are cast. There are also serious concerns about the future of democracy. Competitive districts encourage debate, compromise, and broader voter outreach, while safe districts created through aggressive redistricting reward extreme partisanship and reduce accountability. That's why many election experts support independent redistricting commissions instead of allowing politicians to draw their own maps. At the end of the day, most Americans are less concerned about which party wins every district and more focused on whether elections feel fair, balanced, and truly competitive rather than politically engineered behind closed doors.
Interesting race happening right now for mayor. Karen Bass, the incumbent, who has been embattled and does not have very high approval ratings right now, is being challenged by Spencer Pratt, a reality star known for The Hills, who's a Republican, gets a lot of attention on social media, had a debate this week, got a lot of attention for it. What do you make of what Spencer is doing right now? He's running ads that he's getting a lot of attention for. Certainly a lot of Republicans around the country who don't live in Los Angeles and can't vote for him are endorsing him. What do you think of his chances to actually win in a deeply blue city?
I think Spencer Pratt could be the next mayor of Los Angeles, and I'll tell you why. The last time a reality television star who was politically incorrect ran for office, he ended up all the way at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And Spencer Pratt is reminding me of the saying, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. He has all the makings. I don't even have to use the Donald Trump example. He has the charisma of Mamdani, AOC, Trump. He has that outsider, anti-establishment energy, and he is good at harnessing attention. He is running, tactically speaking, a very nimble, agile, smart campaign. I can tell that campaign is not being governed by committee. My guess is it's a very small team of 5 to 6 people who, just like Trump in 2016, are able to move a lot faster than bloated political consultant type campaigns. And Spencer, people are saying they don't like his politically correct, comments. So in the debate the other night, people said he was offensive maybe when he was suggesting that Nithya Raman go ask people who are homeless under the freeway for treatment. They were going to get stabbed in the neck, and people were really offended by that. Well, guess what? In Venice, California today, we had a man get his arm sliced off with a samurai sword. So Spencer Pratt, it looks like, is way more in touch with reality than the rest of the candidates on that stage.
Quickly, Brian, thoughts on Spencer?
What could possibly go wrong with a longtime reality star who speaks bluntly, knows how to game the media, and decides that he wants to be a politician? Look, I think that would
What
actually...
do you have to lose, Brian?
I think that
Look
that
at
would
this
actually
city.
carry...
What do
I
you
think
have
that
to
would actually
lose?
carry more weight if Donald Trump's approval rating wasn't what it is right now, and if he wasn't, basically exposed as a con artist for promising to be this populist champion, and instead, prices are higher for everybody, healthcare's cut, food assistance has been cut, and we're spending God knows how many billions of dollars per day on a war in the Middle East that he promised would never happen.
Well, in the next few weeks, we will be talking to all the leading candidates for LA mayor, including Spencer Pratt, here on The Story Is. But for now, thanks to Caroline and Brian, we could keep going all night, but at some point we got to...
Please like, subscribe, and share. Many voters are frustrated with traditional politicians, which is why outsider candidates and celebrity figures continue gaining popularity in politics. But being entertaining or going viral online does not automatically mean someone is prepared to lead. Managing a massive city like Los Angeles requires experience handling housing, transportation, public safety, homelessness, emergency response, and huge city budgets. Viral moments and social media attention are not replacements for real governing experience. One of the biggest lessons from recent years is that charisma alone cannot fix deep structural problems. Populist campaigns often succeed by tapping into public frustration, but once elected, voters still expect real solutions. Across the country, Americans continue struggling with rising living costs, expensive healthcare, housing shortages, and failing infrastructure regardless of political branding or celebrity appeal. Modern politics also tends to reward candidates who dominate headlines instead of those focused on practical policy ideas. Outrage and controversy spread online much faster than serious conversations about economic development or city planning. While that may help campaigns gain momentum, it can also lead to governments more focused on performance and culture war battles than solving long-term problems. At the same time, frustrations over crime, homelessness, and affordability in cities like Los Angeles are absolutely real. Voters want leaders who acknowledge these issues,